brutality that's more visible, I guess, these days. So we were kind of challenged with bringing that narrative back to our own cities and really understanding and digging up the root causes, like I said, of police brutality and some of the other things that affect the Black community. And so we were just wanting to be conscious of the things that lead up to cases of murdering unarmed youth and or adults. And that's not isolated to a single place like Ferguson, that there are things that happen in cities all over the world, really, that can be addressed proactively before things like that happen.
And so in a real sense, I think, Pastor Walker, what we've said in reference to this movement is that this movement might have a new name, but this is not a new movement, because there has always been protests against the deprivation and the killing of African Americans and the killing of, and when you look back into the history. But I think that what they've done with this organization is to sort of highlight that, to make people know that this did not just start with the shooting of this person, but this has been going on, even though it might have been under a new name. Ida B. Wells, when she talked about lynching and et cetera, Black Lives Mattered in 1920, or before the end of the Civil War and et cetera. And so I think that that is all part of the African American culture and the response to African Americans in this society. Is that what we're saying? Yeah, because kind of, like you said, it's been in existence for forever. You can say, you know, you can take this thing all the way back to slavery, and proving right there that Black lives really didn't matter in terms of it as being a life. It mattered in terms of being a more of a commodity or a means to an end. But you know, when of course when slavery was abolished and everything like that, then there was actually really no further use for the Black man, especially in America, because they were no longer needed to produce the financial resources and the things that was necessary to keep this country flowing in various areas. So the lives didn't really matter. So it's been going on for years, but when you got the advent of social media to begin to, you know, the internet and social media, it makes everything seem to be a little smaller, brings the world closer together, and then you're able to see something in Nashville, Tennessee. You're able to sit in Nashville, Tennessee, and to visualize something that's taking place in Chicago and Miami and other places and all around the world as far as that goes. But, you know, so you come up now, it's like, okay, all of these things are happening, especially to the African-American male, and it's happening to such a degree as like their lives has no meaning. It doesn't matter. You know, you can go out and you can assault, you can kill an African-American male and just walk away from it. Police cover it up, court systems cover it up, everybody's sweeping it under the rug. You know, and it's like it doesn't matter. Then, you know, groups are coming together and they're stepping out in terms of marching and protesting, and then a little while later, you know, that fades away, and then until something else comes up, and then, you know, we're out there on the forefront again. But I think when you talk about a movement, it's something that's ongoing and stuff like that, and it's continuously getting its strength because of it's continuously being fed negative situations that keeps this Black Lives Matter movement moving forward, you know, and addressing these issues. Because I mean, the African American male is really struggling out here, you know, to be significant, you know, in spite of, you know, many of the accomplishments, you know, that we've made as a people. You know, it's still yet situations that go on. There's a system that is by systemic design to keep the African American male in a place where he don't rise to an area or a level where he actually begins to understand and know who he is, and then begin to function in who he is. You know, our history has been hid from us, and when we talk about that, Dr. Haney, you know, you've been a historian yourself, you know the miseducation, not only of the Black male, but the miseducation of the white male, the white female, in regards to the Black male, you know, because if it's hidden from one, it's hidden from all, you know, and therefore people are living lives and without a knowledge of self. And then when people
don't have a knowledge of self and other people don't have a true knowledge of who we are, then it's easier for our lives not to matter.
And so we're talking about how the sanctity of life among African American males in a real sense, because I think when you look back into history, as you've already indicated, you see that the lynchings, the burnings, and all of those things that were happening in reference to it, they might not be as pronounced now, but in a real sense, they still do occur, you see. And I think that Ms. Gilliard and others who are involved in this Black Lives Matter movement are serving a real purpose in terms of keeping many of these things in front of us and making us aware that this didn't start just today, but it started a long time ago, but it's still going on today.
Absolutely.
And so I think that, and so what we'll do, we'll take this second commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll end the show. We'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. That's what you do. Put a little passion in it. Ain't nobody say about what you say. Just put some passion in it. Yes,
you fill up the slot,
yeah, just fill up some time.
You know, especially now, you know, in terms of you being an African American female, and your advocacy when it comes to Black Lives Matter is really focused mainly on the male, because that's where the attention has been drawn.
That is, I guess that's a public perception, but Black Lives Matter as a network is focused on centering the woman in leadership.
Just talk about women involved. Make us know that, you know, this, and that's what I was thinking about when we thought in terms of bringing a male and female here, that a female would probably have some additional insight into their treatment, for example, by others, you know, and by both blacks and by whites. And so you want to challenge, you want to deal with that?
Yes.
So we'll start off. So we'll have 10 minutes, and when we come back, we'll throw that idea down to you, and you talk about it as long as you wish, and then when you get through, you'll pick up on what you're doing.
Yeah, because that's like you said, that's the misperception.
30 seconds.
You think it's all about, you know. So you can just share some here.
Thank you, and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Pastor Walker and Ms. Gilliard in reference to some of the challenges faced by African American youth. And Ms. Gilliard, let's look at some of your experiences, and I think that you've already mentioned the fact that you are a well-educated young lady, and you've got a lot of information outside of this idea dealing with Black Lives Matter. Right. But let's carry you back to some of the earlier females, Ida Wells Barnett, perhaps some of the people who played females who played significant roles in American history, to indicate that women have always played a significant role in terms of dealing with these issues, and now you are continuing that. Let's do it from that perspective. Talk about it from that perspective, some of what women are doing in reference to this movement.
Right. So I think that there is a public misconception that the Black Lives Matter movement, or the modern civil rights movement, is centered mainly on black males. While black males and their health, I guess, here in America and beyond is very important, I think it's time that we focus and center the female again. In the past, in civil rights movement, and even before that, females have always, or women, I'm going to say women, have always played an important role in movements, in social change, fighting for justice and things like that. But the reason why we want to focus women now is because our voices have always kind of been suppressed at the, or for the cause of uplifting the male voice or putting it on a higher value than a woman's voice. But recently I actually saw a lecture, or went to hear a lecture by Diane Nash, who played an important role in the civil rights movement here in Nashville. She actually went and graduated from Fisk and played an important role in the lunch counter sit-ins and things. And she was telling us that she walked side by side. She knew MLK, but there were a lot of women and even other black males who played important pivotal roles in the civil rights movement and enacting some of the change, like the voters' rights and things like that. But for the sake of having one voice, one face, I guess, their voices were quieted a little bit. So I think that it's important to know that, yes, black males are being killed, but black women are being killed and targeted as well as transgender, LGBT, black youth and adolescents are being targeted as well. So I think that that's something that people need to be more aware of, is that black lives are being targeted in many ways than just one.
And not only African American youth, but in almost every aspect, and not only because of gun violence and et cetera, but there are also other kinds of policies that help to undermine the health and the welfare of the, and I think you could say something, Pastor, about the prison system in terms of how the system has become overcrowded and in many instances unfair, according to some people in reference to that. And so that's...
You know, Dr. Haney, I too had that misconception concerning the Black Lives Matter movement, you know, as a movement that really, you know, just looked and focused on the killings of African American males out here. And I guess it's easy to get that misconception, to pick that up, because a lot of times it's the murdering of a black male by a police officer. A lot of times triggers, you know, the movement into action in a situation like that. So with that being done, then you have a tendency to overlook, you know, other things that the Black Lives Matter movement is dealing with, you know, in terms of the women, the involvement of the women, because, you know, as you were saying, you know, and I was thinking as you was talking, so when the male is under attack, then he's so busy having to fight against his attacker that he's leaving the female unprotected and uncovered, and then if he's murdered, then he's taken away from, you know, a position, and it's hurting the female, the woman, and it's hurting also the children.
And that even goes beyond police brutality or murdering, like you mentioned the prison system, or not being able to have access to health care or education. There's many ways that black lives are
that you can kill a person in many ways outside without using a firearm, and I think that's basically.
And that's, you know, that's another thing. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because again, we focus on that and we think that that's it. But when it comes to our health and when it comes to another thing, when it comes to the children, African American males, not males, it's just African American children, period, being diagnosed as ADHD. And the parents are being paid for that. And it's almost like selling the children into the school to prison pipeline, because you take a child to school, the teacher can't deal with the child, and a lot of time it may have something to do with the child's home environment. You know, a child might not even be getting enough sleep at home, may not be eating well at home, and all kind of things could factor into that. But the only thing is looked at is the child's behavior in school. So they send the child, tell the parent, take the child to the doctor evaluate the child and say, well, this child's got ADHD. So the parent takes a beeline to the Social Security office to get this check, you know, and I'm not understanding why